Shares of Boeing taking off today as the head of the FAA actually personally flew a test flight for the company's grounded 737 MAX plane. Let's get down to Phil about with that big story on the 737 MAX. Phil.
Brian, this was an important hurdle for Boeing and the 737 MAX, and at least on the appearances of the comments from FAA Administrator Steve Dickson, he likes what he saw, although he was fairly cautious about saying much more beyond that. He checked out the plane before he took it on a 2-hour test flight, putting it through all of the same maneuvers that the plane went through when it went through a lot of its certification flights over the last month or so. The software was checked in terms of the flight control software. The new pilot procedures were checked. Here's Dickson after he landed, what he had to say about his flight.
I like what I saw. It's been a constructive week. That doesn't mean that I don't have some debrief items for the Boeing team and the FAA team. We'll be doing some debriefs later on this afternoon. I have some observations that I'm going to share with them.
So he didn't exactly sign off on it, but it certainly was a fairly upbeat assessment of what he thought of the 737 MAX since it's been updated. So here's the outlook. Ungrounding by the end of the year, that's likely. Pilot training will start in the fourth quarter for many of the airlines. And then a return to service. And when I mean return to service, I'm talking about you and I possibly getting on a MAX. That is expected in early 2021. Remember, the MAX has been grounded for more than 18 months. And there are some who believe that the FAA could sign off on it being recertified by the middle of November. And if that happens, then you start to see the wheels go in motion for the plane to get back in the air. And that's why we're going to take a look at the 3 U.S. airlines that have the MAX in their fleet. We're talking about Southwest, American, and United. They're all expected to get this plane back in the air early next year. It's just a matter of getting the pilot training in place. Brian?
All right, Phil, about with that big story there. Phil, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and trade this. Jeff Mills. This was a $440 stock a year and a half ago. We forget that. $440 a year and a half ago. Good news about the MAX, but we don't need more planes. Airlines are downsizing right now. Is this news material to the equity?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. And if you look at the stock right now, it's bumping up against that downward sloping 50-day moving average. So the chart doesn't look great. But I think about that timeline for aircraft demand recovery. And the runway, pun intended, looks a little bit long still. You know, I think about travel demand, and you look at what's going on there, and it's not that people aren't going to fly, they are, but where does that demand plateau? You know, you look at the TSA traveler data, you saw a really nice steady improvement throughout the summer. That has now plateaued, and if you look at some of the industry estimates now, talking about a 66% decline in air travel in 2020, that's greater than the 63% that they were predicting before, and you think, well, 3%, what does that matter? That's 220 million passenger miles. So it's material. And I just think when we continue to be in this situation where air travel is not obviously recovering, it's still going to be a long runway for aircraft demand to recover. So I'm not real excited about Boeing even at these levels.
Even, Karen, $280 off of its highs of 18 months ago.
Right. Well, maybe it never should have been there, but I think I agree with Jeff. I don't want to own it here. I'm just too afraid of the airlines. The only thing I think that's better about Boeing than being in the airlines, which I wouldn't own right now, is that it is, you know, it's an oligopoly. It's a very concentrated business of suppliers, so that's good. But everything else about the airline business is bad, including prices for used planes. So I don't own Boeing.
All right, and won't. All right, at least for now. Karen, thank you.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.